All right, this is Docendo 46. Let's take a look at our sentence here. It says, the benefits from the strategy will only be ephemeral. However, we'll be paying for it for years to come. So first off, we want to look here and see, we got some commas. Do we really need these commas? Well, they're around this prepositional phrase, right? Preposition, noun. The benefits will only be. There's no need to set off a prepositional phrase like this with commas. The benefits from the strategy will only be ephemeral. That makes sense without commas, doesn't it? Now we have the word however here. Now, however is not a fanboy's coordinating conjunction. It's called a conjunctive adverb. And if we use it to connect two independent clauses, we have to have a semicolon in front of it. So let's check to see, do we have an independent clause here? We'll be paying for it for years to come. That is an independent clause, isn't it? So what we need to do is make this a semicolon and then put a comma after. And that's just the conventions. Whenever you use however, therefore, thus, those are all called conjunctive adverbs. They work just like coordinating conjunctions, but they must have punctuation that's different. So a semicolon and a comma after when they're used to connect independent clauses. So this would be a compound sentence, wouldn't it? Because it has two independent clauses. We could obviously get rid of that and we could just say, but we could use a comma to connect the two. All right, I think that's it. Now let's look at the definitions. So ephemeral is something that is lasting for a short, very short time. So ephemeral. Effusive, expressing feelings of approval in an unrestrained or heartfelt manner. So effusive praise would be very, very genuine, heartfelt praise. All right, so our changes we made, again, we got rid of some commas here. Now we have a properly punctuated however to connect the two independent clauses. And again, the comma goes after, semicolon goes before. All right, words from the past here. Voluntary self-punishment to atone for a sin. You've done something wrong and you want to make up for it. What do we call that process? It'd be nice to have one word instead of a bunch here. And then also exemption from punishment or freedom from consequences. Kind of coincidental that today it sounds like there's going to be a number of pardons announced from President Trump. So people will be getting a pardon. That's one term, but this one's a bit different. So penance is voluntary self-punishment. So you're doing something to make up for something you've done. You're doing penance. And then impunity is without punishment. And in that case, you are exempt from the punishment. All right, now the lesson for syntax. We want to talk about lesson 7, which is about abstract concrete nouns. Now we know that we write using abstract ideas and we write about concrete things. And we need to understand the difference because what happens is we need to write about a variety of, think about a ladder. We call this the ladder of abstraction. It's just a metaphor. And the idea is at the top of the ladder is you have abstract words like information. And as you go down the ladder, the word gets more and more specific, more and more concrete. So information, publications, books, novels, Pulitzer Prize-winning novels, To Kill a Mockingbird, my copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. You notice the progression there? And what this ladder just reminds us of is that good writers deal with abstractions, but they also ground those abstractions in concrete ideas. And what happens is not so experienced writers hang out in the middle here. They talk about books and novels as opposed to very specific things. And the idea is, again, you can write about abstract ideas, but make sure your writing reflects concrete ideas that go with them and illustrate. And again, it goes back to the idea of abstract words are very showing words, but concrete, abstract tell where concrete words show. And that's, again, show the reader in addition to telling the reader. So here's another illustration of this. Creativity is an abstract idea, isn't it? It's not something we can touch. So if we're talking about creativity, we want to ground that in something concrete. So an example would be photography, and we get down to something that you can actually touch, a tangible thing. At the bottom of the ladder of abstraction, a Canon 5D camera. So you see the idea there. So if you're talking about creativity, that's fine in a philosophical way, but ground that creativity by talking about specific kinds of creativity. It could be songwriting. It could be taking pictures with a specific type of camera. It could be painting a picture with a specific palette of specific colors of specific things. So here's an illustration of a sentence I think we've seen before. This is that opening sentence to the novel by Hawthorne, Scarlet Letter. This was his original sentence. Obviously, it's a long sentence, but he wants it long because he wants to describe this group of people, this throng of people. And notice how he gives lots of details, mainly prepositional phrases and adjectives to describe them. But it makes it more concrete. The first sentence, a group of people was gathered at the door to the prison. Again, there are some concrete words in there like prison and door, but it's still pretty general, isn't it? A throng is more specific. Bearded men is more specific. Bearded men and women with crowned hats. Certainly a wooden edifice is a more specific than a prison. And of course the door, we've kind of, it's almost like you're zooming in with the camera. And that's a good way when you think about your writing is if you're zooming out, you're more abstract, you're more general. But if you're zooming in, you're more concrete. And good writing does both of those things. All right, so that is Docendo 46.